Okay, Shivani, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me. Well, it's this morning for you, it's this evening for me.
Yes,
But you've agreed to take kind of a 20 minutes out your day today just to talk about your experience working with me at in10tion Performance. We're going to spend a few moments talking about kind of what things were like for you before we partnered together, what they were
yep,
like during when we were working together, and then what it was like for you after the program, because it's been a couple of months now since we had our last session. But before we kind of jump into that, it'd be great to get to know a bit more about you for anyone watching. So, kind of who you are, what you do. If you can just share where you're based, what your job title is, and the industry that you're in, that would be great.
amazing. Hi, I'm Shivani. I am based in London, assistant director in a professional services firm.
Awesome, brilliant, Shani. And before working with me, what kind of specific challenges were you dealing with when it came to kind of you operating at your best, and kind of why did you decide to kind of engage with me?
So I was at a point in my role. So I do financial consulting. I was at a
Hmm.
point in my role where I was actually on the cusp of trying to get promoted,
Yeah.
and the main reason was I was facing a lot of imposter syndrome. I knew what I was doing, I was putting my best into it, but I was facing massive imposter syndrome, thinking whether I was good enough to be able to get promoted. I'd look around at my peers who had already been promoted and think definitely not up to that standard, but didn't know whether that was a reality or just my imposter syndrome speaking.
Yeah.
So that was one of the main reasons that I reached out to get these sessions in the diary and get my have my coaching sessions, because I really wanted to understand a little bit more in depth whether it was truly me or whether it was something that I could work on as a mindset aspect.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was one of the big focuses that we had throughout our sessions together. Right? It was really kind of honing in on that imposter syndrome and understanding what it was that you were thinking,
Yep,
whether or not that was true. What evidence did we have for
exactly.
that?
Yeah.
And then kind of working out some tips and tricks to help you kind of overcome that, if you like. And we'll probably get onto that a little bit more as we have this conversation. But what kind of how was that affecting how you showed up, and how was it affecting your kind of productivity and your progress and work?
It was actually having a massive impact because even though I knew what I was doing was in the right path to get to where I wanted to, because I had this at the back of my mind, I was probably not performing to the best of my ability.
Hmm.
Um, it led me to keep doubting myself. It led me to be flustered, um, always on the edge of feeling as though I wasn't doing a good job, that I should be doing better. And it also actually made me feel very insecure with myself, that I was I always felt as though I wasn't good enough to
Yeah.
get the promotion,
Yeah.
and probably led to me making more mistakes because I was in this overthinking space, rather than just doing what I would normally do and going with the flow, overall impacting my life outside of work because it was all I would think about.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can remember that kind of first session that we had, Shivani, and that was kind of the main discussion, right? It was all you wanted to focus on. It
Yeah,
was almost like you knew that you were good enough,
yeah,
deep down somewhere. But there was so many layers of negative self-talk and
yeah,
a lack of belief, and a lack of being able to look at the evidence that was kind of
yeah,
factually there
yeah.
to make you realize that you were good enough. And I know we'll go on and speak about the promotion part in a minute, but yeah, so many people suffer from that kind of it's called imposter syndrome, but essentially it's a lack of self-belief and
Of
a
course.
lack of you actually looking at what is there and saying,
Yeah.
okay, well, I have achieved this. I'm getting this feedback. I'm making this progress. So why am I having these thoughts? And then you can start to
Exactly.
unpick those and change them and reframe. And the kind of that's
Yeah,
a lot of the work that we did, right?
exactly.
Is there anything that you tried before working with me that kind of had made an impact or hadn't made any impact at all, and that's why you wanted to work with me?
I don't think I went out of my way to try to solve this. previously I would, you know, try and reflect or tell myself I was trying to reflect on all the positive outcomes and all the positive feedback that I was getting. It didn't work very well purely because I wouldn't make enough time to be doing this properly. So I tried to carve out 5 minutes at the end of the day while I was absolutely exhausted to think about, oh, these are all the good things, but wouldn't let myself sit with it long enough for before the, let's say, negative thoughts came back to overtake of, oh, you should have done this better or you could have done this. Um, so that's why I reached out to yourself, Paul, because I knew something had to change, and I couldn't continue like that.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Okay. And so what actually attracted you to work with me initially then? What was that initial kind of, oh, I need to work with Paul?
So actually, initially was from your conversation with my husband, Kavir.
Yeah.
So I was actually in the background whilst you had the initial conversation, and I remember sitting there thinking, this is exactly the type of conversations I need, or a version of these conversations and sessions to be able to potentially overcome what I am feeling and help me go to the next step.
Yeah.
So it was actually me just being very nosy and sitting in the background that attracted me to being say to knowing that I wanted to have these sessions.
Yeah, that's funny because I remember that actually because I think Kavir and I got to the end of the call and I was like, I'm going to call you back because I think I was on a different Zoom plan or something like that.
Yes,
And then by the time I called him back, he was like, my wife was actually in the background listening, and my partner was in the background listening there. And she's really wanting to work with you after hearing that exercise. Because I think we went through that future pacing exercise of
exactly.
where were you in 12 months' time and having
Yeah.
that role play phone call. Yeah, yeah, brilliant. And what so obviously we had kind of 3, 4 months together. We worked, I think
Yep.
we did six sessions. What aspects of the coaching did you find most helpful?
So I think what I found most helpful was your ability to actually, you know, give me real life examples that helped me feel like I could relate.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just, going into the sessions and having somebody talk at me to say, this is the best way to kind of think about things. It was
Yes.
really helping me understand why do I think about things the way that I do, uncovering multiple layers of what had led me to where I was, and also giving me the great and the right examples of, showing me that it's not actually just a singular problem, that it's not just me that faces this. There's, multiple athletes, there's multiple CEOs, CFOs who've got so far and so ahead in their careers that have actually gone through, these phases of their life. And I think that found it really helpful because it actually made me believe that this wasn't just, an hour session with yourself where we would talk about it and then I'd just forget and move on and I'd continue doing the same thing, but something that I could actually take into my everyday life and start to make those mindset shifts and start to really uncover, why am I actually thinking like this? What's led me to this? So it was being really relatable and really giving me the right examples and pointing me in the right direction, which I found the most helpful.
Yeah, and we had some really kind of in-depth discussion, Shivani, about that imposter syndrome because we spent
Yeah.
so long on it, and a big part of trying to solve something like that is asking the right questions at the right
Yeah.
time, hopefully, because that's something that you are going to be able to solve yourself, right? You obviously need a little bit of help with using your coach, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you just need to do this, or this is
Yeah.
how you get over that. It's asking you the questions to go, why am I thinking that? That's not a helpful belief. What is a more
Exactly.
helpful belief? What is a more factual belief? So then giving you that evidence that you already knew was already there, but
Yeah.
bring it to the surface for you, if you like. And
Yes.
then one of the best parts of my job and being a coach is the ability to I have the pleasure of speaking to so many different people, and you mentioned kind of CEOs and sports people and things, but people that are at the top of their careers
Yeah.
who know that investing in a coach is the right thing to do to get that extra 10, 15% out of them if that's, if they want to
Yeah.
squeeze that extra. But most people are the same. They suffer from the same types of blocks, the same types of hurdles, the same types of challenges. So even people at the very top of their game, they still get that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
They still suffer from that. So I think being able to impart that as a bit of wisdom alongside the coaching is really helpful for you to kind of see, just I'm just the same as everyone else in that sense,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm able to then implement and use the examples to get better, the tips and the tricks.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
100%.
So we obviously worked a lot on that imposter syndrome. What changes have you noticed in yourself after working together?
I think I'm a lot more cognizant now when, don't get me wrong, the imposter syndrome is probably still there in the background.
Yeah.
I got the promotion, which was amazing, but
Yeah, congrats again.
thank you. It leads to different thoughts of imposter syndrome now.
Yes.
But it's more now I feel like having the coaching sessions, I've got the right tools to actually take a step back. And before, when I said I tried to reflect, now I actually know how to. So when those thoughts start creeping up, I start, taking a minute, stepping back, thinking, actually, I've got so far in my career today. Is it really that I really can't do it? And if so, then how do I help myself to get to a point where I can?
Yeah.
And we also touched, and something that came out of our conversations was this idea of perfectionism,
Yes.
which I had never really thought about because in my mind, I was never a perfectionist.
Mm.
Um, but it's remembering all our conversations and really understanding and thinking about my thoughts more so than just dismissing them and keep continuing. It's attacking them right at the beginning, which I found really impactful because I've actually managed to stop it before I spiral.
Yes.
And, I think that's really key for me to be able to do a good job, to be able to not get into my head and then actually make things harder, longer, and which it leads to more, thoughts of negativity and stress.
Yeah.
So it's being able to really attack it when it starts. And that was really the most impactful thing.
Yeah. And I think that just to kind of emphasize on that point, that having the awareness of those thoughts and the
Yeah.
fact that they are negative and, going to then compound into more negative
Yeah.
actions, that's the big part, being aware of that. So you've got that awareness. You
Hmm.
can then acknowledge the
Yeah.
thought or the feeling for what it is, and then you can choose which action you take to
Yes.
try and get the results that you want, right?
Exactly.
So that there's two different paths you could go down. You could
Yeah.
you could still be aware and acknowledge it, but then go down the
Just
negative
spiral.
path. Or you can go, right, okay, no, here's the tips and tricks that we've gone through. Here's the way that I can reframe this, and here are the
Exactly.
steps that I need to take to, as I say,
Yeah.
go closer to that result and not further away from it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, brilliant. So what you mentioned mindset a few moments ago there. How has your mindset shifted altogether?
My mind shift, not sorry, my mindset has now shifted to try and be more positive. So, in the sense of, you know, anything, work, life, there's always going to be difficulties. You're never going to be able to potentially be able to do it the first time.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at that as I'm not good enough, it's now oh, this is an opportunity to challenge myself. So even when I do have difficult situations, difficult client calls come up, instead of that turning into this is why I shouldn't have got to where I am or I'm not good enough to be here, it's more, okay, this isn't something I've dealt with before, but I can do it. I've got here. There's ways I will learn. I might fall, but I will get there and I can do it. So it's really reframing my mindset into not everything is negative, not everything you can't potentially do the first time you try is a bad thing, but it's a learning journey, it's a development, it's you're in the right place.
Yeah.
That's not the question.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And we spoke a lot about the mindset piece and remaining positive and
Yeah.
remaining skillfully optimistic. And I think there was a few tools that you implemented like the kind of gratitude and
Yes.
writing down the three good things or the three wins that you had
Yes.
from the day, which helped you realize that, okay, no, I am capable of doing this, and I have done this before.
Exactly.
I've done similar things, and it helps you have that positive mindset. That's certainly what I'm hearing from what you're saying there.
100%.
Yeah.
It's definitely, the taking it away, even when you've had a bit of a hard day and thinking, but what have I actually achieved? And trying to peel away all the, this was really difficult and this didn't go very well. But actually, I learned this and I now know if this comes up in the future, I could probably deal with it in this way. It's being able to peel back the bad thoughts from the what I've actually achieved, which has really helped.
Yeah, yeah. And win or learn, that's one of my favorite quotes. I think we
Yeah.
spoke about that as well, right? Not if you do fail, it's not a failure. It's not,
No,
a step backwards. It's actually part of success. And you got to
exactly.
again acknowledge what's happened in that time and learn from it so that you don't make the same mistake twice. That's the key point.
100%.
And obviously, we could have worked together when you were looking to get that promotion, which you managed to get, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Were there any other measurable improvements that you can identify either in work or outside of it?
I think in general, the main thing is that unless, don't get me wrong, when it's been a really, really tough day, I do bring back the negative thoughts and the stresses outside of work. But one
Hmm.
of the main thing that's been really great is I try and now just stop thinking about the bad. So instead of where I was, naturally spiraling and thinking I wasn't good enough and therefore just being a bit of a mood outside of work because it
Yeah,
consistently be on my mind. Now, because I'm tackling those thoughts before they spiral, I'm just in general feel mentally freer. So I'm just in happier person, less stressed continuously about, this what happened at work today, this didn't go so well, should have done it like this, could have done it better this way. And I think that's maybe not, your standard measure, but just in general for me, it's a really big win and a really big thing.
yeah, no, for sure. Because yeah, well, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, right? Because what we focused on a lot of that imposter syndrome, which is
Yeah,
essentially the negative mindset and that lack of
exactly.
self-belief. But
Yeah.
then when we focused on the positive aspects and we looked a lot at the positive psychology side of things,
Yes.
that does bring a weight off that helps you outside of work. So not only does it help you, tackle those issues and those challenges at the 9 to 5, or well, it's not 9 to 5 anymore, is it? During the working hours.
Yeah.
It also then, yeah, alleviates that at the weekend. So you can kind of park that if you like, or if you dealt with that in a different way, you're not feeling as mentally as big a mental load because you've been able to handle it differently.
Exactly. That was I think that was a really big win for me because I could have gone many, many more years of just having miserable weekends because all I was thinking about was was how I didn't do a task as best as I could have potentially. So yeah.
Yeah, great to hear. And obviously, there's been a couple of benefits there. You've mentioned obviously the mindset has been more positive. We worked together to get that promotion, which has
Yeah.
been great. You're feeling happier, less stressed. Are there any benefits that maybe you didn't anticipate initially that you got from our time working together and still continue to have now?
I think one of the key benefits was being able to understand why I view things the way I do. So one of the things I think I touched upon was this idea of perfectionism or
Yeah.
everything having to be, 100%. And it actually goes back to when I was probably a child at school and always feeling like if I didn't get an A, that was kind of the worst thing. And coming to the workplace and it's a completely different ball game. So I think one of the benefits is actually what I've learned is when I have certain thoughts, certain feelings, it's not just understanding the current present, why do I feel like this or why am I doing things this way, but actually, is it something that, is so ingrained at the back of my mind
Mm.
that's leading me to feel this way? So it's being able to actually delve deeper, um, and understand that not everything is solvable in the moment, even when I am feeling these ways. But if I work on it, I will get there. And it's not necessarily to do with the current situation. It could be just, like I said, just many, many years of telling myself that this is the way it should be. And that is the reason I've got to the point that I have. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point to mention, and one of the best benefits, I think, of coaching,
Yeah.
right? Because you're able to have those conversations. Coaching is a conversation, but you'll have noticed from the sessions that we had, it's not a kind of the standard type of conversation, right? There's, from a coach's perspective, hopefully in a good session,
Yeah.
I'm not speaking too much. I'm hopefully just listening correctly and asking you the right questions at the right
Yeah.
time. And it's very, very rare in life that you have a conversation like that, which allows you to think a little bit deeper and peel back
Exactly.
the layers, like you're saying, to understand, okay, what I do think that way, but why am I thinking that way? Oh, it goes back to this, and it's because of this
Yeah.
belief I had when I was at school, like you mentioned. And that's why I think coaching is so great, because it's such a simple way of understanding yourself a little bit better by having
Yeah.
someone just ask those questions at the right time to help you in that circumstance.
100%.
Yeah, brilliant. Great to hear. Okay, in terms of the fact that we obviously worked together for 3 months, we had that period where you were looking to get that promotion. We got that. Why would you recommend kind of my coaching to anyone else in kind of similar positions, or just anyone looking to get the best out of themselves? Is there anything that you would kind of recommend to people about working with a coach? Not necessarily myself, but just coaching in general.
Oh, definitely. I think, like I said previously, before I was being nosy and sat in that conversation, in the background of that conversation, I think, in my mind, didn't really understand the value or what a coach does.
Yes.
Um, so the biggest thing that I've learned is, as you previously mentioned, it's these conversations with a coach. Nobody, or very rarely, will you have a conversation with anybody who will probe you in the way that you would like to be without you knowing,
Yeah.
um, to get to get you to kind of an answer by yourself. And I think what was the best thing about our conversations and our sessions was you never once said, well, actually, why don't you think about it like that? It was always, we got to those questions. I answered so many questions for you to say, what if you thought about it like that from the beginning? Or what if you reframe your mindset to think about it like that? And I think it's so important to be able to get to that end goal yourself,
Yes.
even though, coaching is a helping hand to getting there. When you're told to do something, naturally you just dismiss it.
Yeah.
Um, so getting to that point, and you getting to that point, makes you think about so many different things. You take so many right and left turns to just get to that final answer that you really uncover so much. And I think that is why, these sessions worked so well. You really helped me understand why I was thinking the way I was. Um, you asked me the right questions. You gave me such great examples that made
Mm.
me feel very relevant. I'm not alone. I think that was a key thing for me where I felt maybe this is just me.
Yeah.
Um, we really discussed and discovered so many different scenarios where when I look back at it, I would never have really gone through that process had we not had these sessions. So I think it's, the great questions, being able to pick up on certain, even the smallest of things, giving me the right examples, and you're just very, very relatable. It's a very easy conversation. It didn't feel like I was being told off. So I think that was, yeah, it was incredible.
Brilliant. Great to hear it. I think you put that beautifully there, Shivani, in terms of having those conversations where you are kind of gently challenged and probed,
Yeah,
never being told what to do, but being asked the right questions so that you could figure out why it was certain things were
exactly.
happening in terms of thought patterns, and then what you could do to solve them. That is the essence of coaching. And I think for a lot of people, they are not aware that that is the case.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people still have the idea that coaching is someone that's maybe a few steps ahead of you in a certain aspect of life and are telling you what to do or are giving you that direction based on what those
Exactly.
people have done. Not the case. Maybe more of a mentoring role, which
Yeah,
sometimes happens within coaching, but that pure coaching piece is about, yeah, asking the right questions at the right time and getting you to unpick and understand what it is that you need to do so that you've got that intrinsic motivation to then, meet that goal or take that action, do that thing.
exactly.
Yeah, great that you've articulated that. That's really makes me happy. Is there anything that you'd say to someone considering working with a coach, but they're unsure whether to take the plunge and invest in themselves?
I think if you're in a situation where, you feel like you've tried everything, or you feel that your thoughts or you can't deal with something in the best way that you possibly could, coaching is honestly one of the greatest things that I have done. Um, because of the journey you go through, and afterwards it basically becomes second nature.
Yes.
The conversations, the way that we reframed things, the like my thought patterns, it's now something that I can just take into kind of any situation. It's never going to leave. So I think it's not just a feeling where this is a one-time situation and I need a coach for this one aspect. It's actually going to be a long-term investment that you can then reframe your thoughts and your feelings going forward in any situation, personal, work, whatever it may be. So if you're thinking about taking the plunge, you really should.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that's what I try and do, right? When I'm working with someone, I always try and give them the tools and the tactics so that
Yeah.
long after they stop working, or we stop working together, they're still able to use that in their life, right? It's probably a terrible business model, to be honest, because then people never come back to work with me because they've already got what they need. But yeah, I like to give that value right there and
Yeah,
then so they can use it at different parts of their life so that, if
for
you're
sure.
have another challenge in the future, another obstacle, then you can use some of the tactics, the reframes, the ways to change your thinking patterns, all that kind of stuff, and just bolt it
Definitely.
onto the new thing, whatever that is.
100%. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so obviously you've been coached yourself, Shivani. Now you kind of really enjoyed that experience. Do you have any final thoughts or advice for anyone else who's maybe stuck in a pattern of beliefs or kind of behaviors that aren't suiting them and that are holding them back?
I think my thoughts about those is it's never really um you really do need to frame those negative thoughts into positivity, and that can be really difficult,
Yeah,
but it is really understanding why do you feel this way, taking a step back and realizing that it's actually not the be all and end all, even though in that moment it feels like, the worst thing, and you've got yourself into maybe a little bit of a situation where it's really hard to pick yourself up again. Um, I think being able to take that step back and really understand the depths and the crux of why you've got to that is so helpful. And once you're able to get back on top of those thoughts and really squash them before they get too negative, it just makes life so much easier and lighter.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's a key thing as well, isn't it? Because it's um having that awareness that we spoke about before, and then
Yeah,
acknowledging that, okay, I'm having these thoughts, but actually it's human nature to have these
yeah,
negative thoughts at times. And I know we spoke about the fact that, we're kind of wired to have that negativity bias, right? Because when we were early humans, it mattered much more to us if we missed a threat than an opportunity. So we're always
yeah.
kind of trying to see or we're kind of wired that way to see the negatives, but the negatives now are completely different to the negatives back in
Yeah, yeah,
cave days, right? So we're now getting stressed and worried about all these things, maybe in the workplace, as opposed to, there's a saber-toothed tiger outside trying to eat our family or something.
exactly.
But we've still got that same
Yeah.
physiological reaction. So we just need to recognize that and then choose another
And
helpful set of beliefs or actions that are going to help us.
Yeah. And as we discussed multiple times, putting yourself in that place, you have to you have to experience it twice. You already think all these negative thoughts, and then you go into the situation, and if that you're projecting those negative thoughts, you're experiencing it twice when you really don't need to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, why suffer twice? And this is what my own coach and mentor says. Shout out to Andy Ramage. He says, tell better stories,
Yeah.
right? Because everything's a story until it happens. It's a story in your head. So why have a negative one when it could be a positive one and then suffer twice?
Yeah.
So yeah, brilliant. Well, that's the kind of the coaching coming full circle there because that, as I say, my own coach told me that kind of tell better stories. That's me kind of passing that on to you and you passing it on to everyone else by sharing it here. So I
Yeah.
think
It's
that's
a
probably
great
a
story.
good place to end, Shivani. Thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll speak again soon.
Thanks so much.